Hello, good people. I'm sure most of us have encountered these special kind of people who, at times we call them stammerers. So they stutter or stammer when they speak. And there's something uh, interesting about these people that many people think they have low IQ or low level of intelligence or something. But actually, what happens in stuttering or stammering is it's a it's a nerve developmental speech disorder that primarily happens in your brain. Let's How this happens is you see, for you to initiate a speech, it requires a precise coordination between your brain, your nerves, and the muscles of your tongue, your jaw, your lips, your vocal cords, and your breathing muscles. Remember, at some point we said respiration or breathing typically relies on special type of muscles that we talked about at some given point in time, maybe on a different platform. Now, see, in your brain, there are different brain networks that deal with speech, which are primarily located on the left hemisphere of your brain. For example, we have a region we call the Broca's area or the Broca's region, which is responsible for speech planning. We have what we call the supplementary motor region or supplementary motor area, which is responsible for now initiating this speech. We have the basal ganglia, which is responsible for timing, and then the cerebellum is responsible for coordination of speech and error correction in case maybe there's a slip of tongue or something, or you said what you are not planning before. So normally, altered brain physiology or nerve development disorder is one of the factors that causes this. And then we have it's also associated with surge in dopamine. Remember, at some point we say dopamine is what we call the happy hormone. That's why you realize there's some people who are fluent, but once they take drugs, for example, let's say alcohol, they tend up to have an issue with speech coordination. They stammer or they become slurred in terms of their speech. And then also stress causes this, because stress places more demand on self-planning and speech planning. For instance, remember, when you are stressed, like these are words that you didn't plan, so you have to strain your brain to plan what you are saying. And mostly stress goes in hand with anger. So at least stress can make somebody stutter. And then we have genetics. Normally, there is high chances of somebody developing stammering or stuttering if in their family or one of the closest family members was a stammerer, because in some cases these not even in some cases, but in more cases, you find that these nerve developmental speech disorder that is in your brain, as we explained, normally runs across in some family. They are genetically disposed that way, that their nerves don't develop accordingly. But there's something funny about these people who start or stammer. You realize they'll stammer when making a speech or when you're conversing, but they'll not stammer when they are singing. I don't know if you've observed this, but they don't stammer when they are singing. And there's a very a funny reason about this, because one, remember, singing employs what we call rhythm, melody, repetition, and normally the song is in most cases pre-planned. You cannot, unless if you are doing what we call freestyle, but normally the song is pre-planned, or the songs or the poems are pre-planned, so they have practiced before, so there is no stress in initiating this speech. And then, because you see, melody changes how speech is produced. Like, you remember, for you to achieve this tonal variation, so that you achieve the rhythm and melody, there are some words that you have to prolong. And when you prolong a word, it's now good for these people. Remember how they stammer, they can repeat a word. If they want to say a boy, they say boy. Or some can they could be prolongation of words, like instead of saying sun, they say sun. Yeah. So normally that is what happens. And then apart from rhythm, we have apart from melody, we have rhythm, which produces extreme timing of what you have to say. So before you get to that word that you have to pronounce in that song, already your brain has had enough time to process that kind of word, and then when you're singing, you realize your breathing becomes more synchronized and balanced. And you remember we said initially, for you to produce a good speech, there must be a clear coordination between your brain nerves and some muscles, of which one of them is the vocal cords. And for you to sing, you have to have there is a muscle that becomes tense so that you can produce the tone, and so that you can produce the tone, the rhythm, and whatever. There is a muscle called the platysma. So for when you are singing, this platysma becomes a bit stretched and thick, so it controls the vocal cords, and so the breathing becomes at least a better synchronized than when you're producing the normal speech. So these people are not mentally incapacitated or something. In fact, psychology says they are one of the best people. They are very clean-hearted. I don't know how that is related. Maybe we shall find out that in the due course. But one thing you have to note about them is that when they stammer, or probably if you know what they're going to say next, please always desist or avoid predicting for them or giving them. If they are to say boy, they say boo boo boo. Do not say boy. If you have to just note that you've understood what they are saying, because anytime you do that, they become psychologically affected, and that's why you find most of them, they withdraw even from their cycle of friends, and they avoid making conversations in public. They resort to a different, which prolongs the issue. But it's something that can be managed, because you realize nowadays, unlike before, the cases of stammering or stuttering has at least declined from yesteryears. About 15% of every newborn was likely to develop stammering, but as we speak currently, it has gone down to merely 1%. But still, we are not saying it has improved, because medically, any index, even if it's 0.1%, raises the question why, because medicine is all about why or how. It's not about achieving acceptable numbers, because nothing is acceptable. A disorder is a disorder. So even the 0.1 or the 1% still stimulates research and thinking further from that. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is what actually happens with them. But they can improve with speech therapies, and then nowadays children are lucky, because unlike our days, you had to rely to somebody, your nanny or your mother or your father or your siblings, to train you on how you to speak. But nowadays, kids have tablets. They enjoy most of the screen time. So like you see, this is technology versus the normal mind. So it trains the mind faster, it jacks the mind. So like they'll have no issue with developing or planning or initiating speech, because the bar is a bit raised. Yeah, basically that is all about, not actually all, but that is the basics about this stammering.